right. Well, welcome back to the Freedom Formula, where today I have the pleasure of getting a chat with Alan, and I'm honestly excited. So, on the back end, a lot of these end up getting booked. They get thrown in my calendar, and I get a couple of minutes to kind of look through and who am I getting to chat with today? And scrolling through Instagram, it's one of those things where you do business, you focus on business, you can make things grow and all that stuff, which is great. But there's some gym selfies in there. So you take fitness seriously. You actually have a personal life as well. So relationships and things like that matter. So I'm excited just to be able to kind of jam on some of those things. We're all about health, wealth, relationships here. And yeah, Alan, welcome to the show. If you can tell everybody kind of quick who you are, what you do, and give us the jump start of what we're going to dive into today.
So number one is thank you. Thank you for having me. Anyone out there watching or listening, I do not take it lightly. I mean this. Whatever you're paying attention to is very much influencing your future. So I don't take that lightly. I will not waste a moment of your time. And if nothing else, I hope everyone thinks a little differently or contemplates a little more after this episode. So thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. You and I are very congruent. Who am I? What do I do? Very, very short 30-second. That'll be a big challenge for me because I tend to be long-winded as a podcaster. But health, wealth, and love. For you, it's health, wealth, and relationships. So Next Level You, Next Level University, name of the company and the name of the podcast. Next Level You, pun intended, meaning not my version of you, but your version of you, your own unique version of yourself. And it's health, wealth, and love. It's holistic self-improvement in your pocket from anywhere on the planet, completely free. And we do an episode every day. And it's exactly what you're doing, which is how do we help people reach their potential through this idea of self-improvement, but not this narrow career-oriented one where you're actually holistic about it and you make sure that you don't end up. A lot of my early mentors, very, very, very successful in corporate, one, chief officer at a $1 billion robotics company and just ended up divorced and that kind of thing. So how do we not take our health for granted? You already mentioned that. And how do we play the long game holistically to where we can actually sustain it rather than letting our type A drive us right into the ground?
Yeah, I love that. It's one of those things that I wish I knew way back when I first started my first business, that no matter who you are, you think you're just going to be able to run through that brick wall in your first business. So I'm not, if you're in your first year of business, listen to it. In 5 years, this will make sense. But it's just kind of my mission now. I see way too many business owners just, they burn out on a thing that could have offered them so much on the other end, whether it be a relationship, whether it be their actual job, whether it be just their love for what they are passionate about. So again, I'm excited to just talk about that stuff because of the massive alignment, but I'd love to start off. Just tell me about Next Level You, just what is that? Where'd it come from? Like, I love the idea of it. Just talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, thank you. So Next Level You started out in a interesting place. I got in a car accident 10 years ago. I'll take you all the way back. I'll try to be as brief as I can, but I'm trying to condense 36 years into a very short amount of time.
1 minute per year.
Awesome. Okay, perfect. So 36 minutes. Here we go. Let's rock. No, so three main things sort of shaped me. I'll be as brief as I possibly can because I want to get into the goods. But when I was born, I was 2 years old, almost 2.5. My birth father passed away in a car accident when he was 28. And my real last name is actually McCorkle. Okay. Jim, Joe, John, Jane, Joan, Jeanette. My birth father, John McCorkle, was one of 6, big Irish Catholic family. And I had a stepfather from age 3 to 14. At 14, my stepfather left, took 90% of the income with him, went from sort of boats and ski trips in the 90s to I get free lunch at school now because our income is so low, became sort of the man of the house. It's a very, very, very long story, and if you want to get into it, we can, but I kind of lost 3 families by the time I was 14 years old. We didn't really associate much with the McCorkles anymore when we were trying to be the Lazaroses, and then my mom got in a fight with my Aunt Sandy, her sister, and we got kind of ostracized from that side. So I've only ever seen 2 human beings from my mom's side. We still associate with the McCorkles, but it was never really the same because we sort of lost them early on, and then when we were being the Lazaroses, and then I still have not seen or spoken to a single member of my stepfather's side of the family or him. I talked to him a little on Facebook Messenger, but haven't seen him. That wasn't until my 20s and early 30s. So definitely some abandonment challenges early on. So what does this have to do with your question about next level you? So I'm 26 at the time. At this point, computer engineer, master's in business, straight A's in high school, all that kind of stuff, rising in corporate, top 1% global earner, just type A super achiever guy, essentially. But externally successful, internally unfulfilled, definitely not healthy, definitely not as holistic as I would like. Drinking too much and too often. I brought my high school friends to college friends to corporate. Didn't understand any of this at the time, but really this is the shortest version. Okay. So 10 years ago, I get in my car accident. Head-on collision, my fault. Physically, we were okay because I was in a 2004 Volkswagen Passat that I bought in cash because I paid off 84 grand worth of debt in a single year. I had 150 grand in a Vanguard account, bought all these tech companies. I was so used to being broke when my stepdad left that I didn't need much. So why not buy a cheap car and that kind of thing? Build wealth was my answer to life's problems, which worked and didn't work. And we can get into that. I know that's a lot of entrepreneurs' thing. Once they get the wealth, then it's, oh, okay, so what about my fulfillment though?
It's funny how that works, huh?
Why am I still wildly unhappy? And again, we'll get into it because after 26, I got in my own car accident. My father had passed away in a car when he's 28. So for me, even though we were physically okay, my second cousin and I, it was my sort of quarter life existential crisis. Now, that was 10 years ago. And at the time, I had post-traumatic stress disorder. Double yellow line scared me. Getting back in a car was really hard. This was not a fender bender. This was a bad accident. And I was claustrophobic, and I had all this stuff to work through. That's the post-traumatic stress part. But there's post-traumatic growth that happened too. And this is when I found self-improvement. And I'm talking, I dialed that shit up to 12. And personal growth, personal development, self-improvement, I just went down the rabbit hole. The Tony Robbins and the Darren Hardys and the Og Mandinos and the Brian Tracys and the Stephen Coveys and every book I could get my hands on, every course. I mean, and then now therapy, all this stuff. That was 10 years ago. I actually ended up, I went from externally successful and internally unfulfilled to internally super fulfilled, happy, healthy, productive, fitness model, fitness competitor, fitness coach, but I went broke. And so now I'm internally fulfilled and I love my life, but I can't sustain it because now I'm broke. So the little company that I started after my car accident was called Alan Lazaros LLC, what you'll never learn in school, but desperately in all caps need to know. And I wanted to bring inspiration, motivation, and education. I wanted to bring personal development to the school system. Did not work. And in some ways I'm still doing it. So again, your original question, what is Next Level University? It was born out of this really sort of depressing understanding. And I don't want to be morbid about this by any means because I'm a technologist and I love it. But ultimately, I was in automation. I worked for a company called Cognex, and I was an outside sales engineer. I managed Vermont, Connecticut, and Western Massachusetts when I was 26 years old. And I would go into all these manufacturing facilities, big ice cream companies you would think of, or big manufacturers. And I would see these pictures on the walls of these thousands of workers. And then I would look at it now, and now it's one floor manager and all robotics, literally all robotics. So I saw this thing, and I made this one big paycheck one day, big commission check. And I'll never forget it. I was at an ice cream company that I'm not allowed to say, but just imagine a really delicious ice cream company. And there was people that were looking at the cartons before they went into the packages. And I sold equipment that did that faster. Think about the eyes of a robot that just does quality assurance, takes pictures of these cartons going down, making sure the label, 360 degrees, all stuff. So I make a big paycheck. I'm doing really well. Awesome. And then those jobs are gone. Now, automation's coming whether we like it or not. I mean, you can't go into a Walmart now without realizing that half of these are, automated. And that's going to continue. That's never going to stop. I got my McDonald's once on a conveyor belt. Okay. And it's good in some ways, but those jobs are gone. So I saw this trend, and I don't usually talk about it because it comes off elitist, and it's not what my point. Statistically speaking, the less educated population tends to have more children and tends to have them younger. So 5 kids, they have 5 kids, they have 5 kids. It exponentially increases. So the less educated population is increasing exponentially, but the jobs available to the less educated population are decreasing exponentially. So I saw this huge problem happening in the 21st century with the law of accelerating returns, and you can look this up. And I said, you know what? Instead of being a part of automation, even though it's going to happen with or without me, I need to reinvent myself and I need to be a part of the solution instead of a part of the problem. So I'm not against automation. Got to do it, is what it is. AI, all that. However, what if I created a company that helped people reinvent themselves so that they could be relevant in the future economy, especially the people who really, really, really need to reinvent themselves? Like, if you don't know how to use computers, I built my first computer when I was 12. I was the esoteric weirdo nerd who got straight A's in high school. Like, I get it. I'm a computer
I went to
engineer.
school for computer
Okay.
engineering. I'm just laughing. Like, there's a lot in here. I went to
Nice.
Polytechnic University in Brooklyn for computer engineering,
Nice.
and
Worcester Polytech. Worcester
there we
Polytechnic
go.
Institute.
You're not too
Yeah, yeah,
far
yeah.
away. I
Okay,
haven't been
so
Brooklyn. You're man. Okay, that's funny.
all right, nice. So you and I chose some interesting paths, which is cool. But ultimately, I see this happening. And if you look at the growth of technology, everyone understands doggy years. One human year is 7 doggy years. Well, there's also tech years. One tech year is 7 years. And it's more than that. But the point is that we've had more change in the last 20 years than the previous
Mm-hmm.
2000. And you can literally research this. I always come off as a pretentious asshole whenever I talk about this stuff to people who don't know these things. I'm trying really hard to just overcome that. But ultimately, this is happening whether we like it or not. Self-driving cars are coming, whether we like it or not. My car, literally, I can summon it
Mm-hmm.
to me. Okay. And automation's never going to
Didn't
stop.
didn't we
So,
recently? So when I went to college, we learned about Moore's law. Didn't we recently actually prove
correct.
that Moore's law actually doesn't work anymore because we're accelerating even faster than what it originally said?
Yes. Yeah. So, Moore's law is essentially that the power of a computer chip doubles every 18 to 24 months, but the size. So 20 years ago, a computer can now fit under my pinky
Yep.
fingernail, type of thing. And again, this is happening. So your iPhone's more powerful than the Apollo spaceship, that kind of thing. So my point, Next Level University, I decided to build a company that helped people reach their potential and reinvent themselves so that they could be relevant in the future economy, even if right now they don't feel like they were given the opportunities. Because the truth is, I grew up broke when my stepdad left. I got financial aid and scholarships, and yeah, I earned them because I got straight A's or whatever. But I also was fairly gifted, and I feel very strongly that it's really important for us to provide opportunities for other people to learn that maybe didn't have the financial aid and scholarships that I got to have. So this is sort of my way to give back, and some of it was just naive because I figured everybody would want to learn if it was available. Now that's just not fucking true. Because now that it's available, it's actually really hard to get people to self-improve, and that's why I'm here today.
Yeah, it's so I without this today's about you, not me. Grew up poor, grew up mom drug addict, all these things, living in the double wide. Got taken away from my mother because heroin overdose, like all these things, right? And I look back and I'm like, why was I able to be played hockey, track and field, winter and spring, played football, was in marching band, was in concert band, and got honor roll 15 out of 16 marking periods in high school. Got a scholarship to go to engineering school. Left after 2 years because, like, nope, school traditional, not for me. I'm going to go do this thing. Um, Whole nother job. But I always look back and I'm like, man, I wish that I had the opportunity to learn when I was younger and in school and all these components. And I like how you said you want to make sure everybody has the opportunity to learn, not necessarily just give everybody things, because you can give somebody something, but until they earn it, they don't value it. So there's I hear you loud and clear on that stuff, and I definitely wish something that could help me think differently about the world younger was available, or I knew about it. Or I mean, in the 90s you didn't have access to stuff like that, but it's such a different
Same.
world.
Do you mind if I ask how old you are? Because I'm
I'm 39.
36. So Okay, so yeah, so I people say, "Oh, well, when the teacher is ready, the student will appear." Hey, I
Mhm.
was ready. There wasn't any teachers. And I'm not saying no teachers, like I want to be clear. I had some great teachers. What I'm trying to say is self-improvement was non-existent in my childhood. And it sounds
We
like
didn't have
yours
the
too.
internet like we do today.
Brother, I am so alarmed looking back at my childhood. And you obviously are too. Let's be honest. I was eager and
Mhm.
ready. There was no one that was leading by example.
Yeah.
And that's what I try to do today. And so that's what Next Level U is all about, to answer your question. It's a place you go to learn how to reach your potential. That's what I always would have wanted. And if you're not trying to reach your potential, trust me, you're in trouble in the future. And that's just the truth.
100%. Yeah, it's today, you were looking back 13 years ago, worrying about changing how there was QCing being done on ice cream cartons, and today we can write code on one of however many apps that are available to us on our phone in seconds to go and program whatever we want to program. Like I use ChatGPT Operator as one of my employees. It's $200 a month for for that employee to do work all day. You just have to know how to use it.
Yeah.
Um, I'll talk to people like, I don't want to spend $200 a month on that. I'm like, but don't you have employees? It's $50 a week to get a lot of work done. I'm confused. But anyways,
Yeah,
so
100%.
well, I love that, dude. I want to dive down that a little bit deeper, but making sure we touch on all the things that matter here. And I want to go back to kind of nerd mode a little bit, but also the fitness side. So you mentioned you've done fitness, you've been in that world, you've spent some time. I saw some pictures, so it's the statistic is you're more likely to be a millionaire than to have six pack abs. So I'm assuming you're checking those boxes there and everything like that. But talk to me about fitness a little bit. That's not something that's always ingrained in somebody, and I think your health is one of the kind of richest things that any of us can have, and unfortunately, not everybody has that because they just don't know, and it's not. They'll say it's cheap to be healthy, but it's not necessarily cheap. There are some inexpensive things to do, but organic spinach is not cheap and eggs are not cheap today. So,
Yeah. Well, health is a full-time job if you want to do it well. And some athletes, their whole world is to just keep their body operating at peak levels. And I think that for business owners in particular, sometimes we let our health slide because it's mostly our brain that we are using. I never wanted to be like that, and I want to make this as clear as possible too. I went to engineering school, and it was not cool to be in shape. It 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 wasn't. I mean, we were mining for Bitcoin on our dorm room in 2007. Like, this is the kind of school I went to, right? And you're laughing because you did that kind of stuff too, and we didn't know, right? Okay, so uh, I didn't get into health and fitness until after that car accident, and I dialed it up to 12. So again, I'm an engineer, and I need to make this as clear as possible. I think in a math modality of thinking. Obviously, your listeners know that you do too. There's four modalities of thinking. If anyone's curious, there's math, logic, rationality, and numbers. That's the rarest, I think, but of course I would. The second is pictures, images, and vision. The third is words and concepts. That's the most common. Most people think in words and concepts, conversation. And then the fourth one is energy, vibe, and intuition. And I think most men struggle with that one. I certainly did. But for a math modality of thinking, fitness is just an equation, and everything is. Let's be real. I know that sounds so damn pretentious. For me, it was sleep, hydration, nutrition, training, mobility, breath work, and supplementation. And you can zoom into each one of them. So you can zoom into sleep. Okay, well, there's a bunch of different factors there. Okay, and then you zoom back out and you zoom into nutrition. Okay, well, there's macros and micros and calories. Okay, how are you getting them? Sources, all this stuff. Then you can zoom out and zoom into weight training. Okay, well, what kind of weight training? Are you trying to do muscle building or fat loss? You try to do them simultaneously, you're screwed unless you're on steroids. So everything's an equation, and everything's a compound effect, and everything's an accumulation, just like the technology conversation. And I think that what it comes down to is fitness is an endeavor that I think everyone, health and fitness, should embark on. I mean, there's a couple majors in life. They always say don't major in minor things. I agree with that A million percent. I think I used to spread myself super thin. I used to invest my time and effort into persons, places, things, and ideas that were just a giant fucking waste of time. And I now focus on health, wealth, and love. So health is physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. Wealth is how you earn your money. In other words, do you actually have meaningful work? Is it increasing or decreasing over time based on the future economy? And then where do you invest it? And then love is your intimate relationship, immediate family, pets, colleagues, clients, mentors, mentees, friends, colleagues, all that kind of stuff. And so I gave a speech at my alma mater 2 months ago, month and a half ago, and it was engineering a fulfilling life. And the key word there is engineering. Engineering, what does that mean? By design. Everything's reverse engineered. And I think that I've come to realize that a lot of people don't like me because I'm very Spock-like. And for whatever reason, the world thinks that if you're calculated, it's somehow not from the heart. I don't know where that came from, because just because you're a strategic person doesn't mean it's not heartfelt, and it doesn't mean I'm not here to serve. But for some reason, you're just the weirdo who thinks in equations, and obviously we both are. But engineers tend to hide that, and I'm just really leaning into it. So to answer your original question, though, health was not natural for me. Breaking it down and being effective in it actually was. And after 10 years ago, I really dialed that up to 12, and I did fitness competitions, and I did 43 photo shoots, and I was a fitness coach, and I modeled and all this stuff. But now I actually just I try really hard to keep it a huge priority, which is exponentially more difficult as the business grows.
Yeah. Keeping health a priority is always a hard thing, but you kind of hit the nail on the head. I mean, a lot of my industry and my world has always been in health and wellness. I opened my first gym in 2009. I got my first personal training job in 2006. And,
Nice.
So as I'm like, man, I'm getting close to 20 years since I got my first rinky dink weekend certification. But it really does come down to math, solving how the actual fitness side of things work, and from a nutrition component of health, your calories are going to dictate how much you weigh. Your macros are going to dictate what you look like, and your micros are going to dictate how you feel. And when you start to understand those components and whatnot, you now start to learn how to actually manipulate them. And again, like if you have a cell phone, there's apps that are free, AI apps that can help you navigate some of those things. Don't take every single thing it tells you as the absolute and whatnot, because it is AI, it can be wrong. But there's a lot of ways to go research. And if you're dealing with a situation where you want to lose weight, eat less. If you're dealing with a situation where you want to gain weight, eat more. If you want to change how you look, your literal composition, start to mess with those macros and change those around. And if you want to just generally feel better, have more energy, things like that, there's some basics, but look at your micros, your nutrients. What does your vitamin workload look like? What is all those things, your water, your hydration, your sleep? Those things are not necessarily hard or expensive. Now, on the flip side, if you're looking to go above and beyond and you want to eat a very specific way and you want to work out a very specific way and you want to recover a very specific way, it can get expensive, but you can be generally healthy without it. And that's where I think a lot of people, it's a full-time job. I mean, I program for myself, and 5 mornings a week I'm in the gym from the time I leave my house till I come home and I'm done with my shower and my morning time. It's 2 to 2.5 hours, 5 mornings a week. I mean, it's a 10 to 15 hour a week ordeal, but it makes me better.
And it compounds into the rest of your world. You now have more authentic confidence rather than ego. You now feel better physically. You now are sharper mentally. You now are increasing your muscle mass and therefore your longevity. It just compounds. Everything compounds. I put $1 into a financial calculator once. And again, this is just, I just need to reiterate the mathematics behind life, right? We think linearly, but life works in exponentials. And nothing actually grows linearly, right? COVID's a good example. It was 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64. That's why it was so scary. And so everything grows and compounds or decays, right? And I just want to give an example that I hope helps people, and I hope sincerity is what shines through. I put $1 in a financial calculator and I did the 1 year, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, right? So it grows. I have it written right here. 0.1% improvement every day for 50 years becomes $84 million. So if you put if you put $1 in a financial calculator, anyone can do this. You can put it in ChatGPT if you want. What would $1 growing at 0.1% per day be in 50 years? And I can crunch the numbers. I got to close my eyes to do it. So the first year is $1.44, so barely any growth. The first 10 years, it is $38.44. Then it's 38 times that, 38 times that, 38 times that. Like, you can crunch these numbers. And the post on my social media that I have pinned is this exact concept, because whether it's the flywheel or it's the snowball effect or it's the compound effect, to me, Einstein said the eighth wonder of the world is compounding. And so if you look at me in high school, I'm this skinny, lanky, loser. And I was overlooked by every girl. I I couldn't attract anyone or anything. It was just, I had to play the long game. And so I did. And now I'm 36 and it's really starting to compound. And the way I see it is, if you can aim higher, work harder, and get smarter a little bit each day, I think, one, you'll lose a lot of your friends. And number two, you'll be really successful and hopefully internally fulfilled if it's aligned with your core values and your uniqueness. And you obviously are good in relationships as well, because those are important. But I think that when it comes to fitness and health and wealth, and even this podcast, it comes down to these simple fundamentals that are executed consistently over time. And I know that that's not a sexy answer. And people always ask me, like, what's the biggest thing you did in the last 10 years to, 175 countries and 2,000 episodes and all this stuff. And the truth is, it's habit tracking. I track habits every single day. I track metrics every single day. We have 1.17 million listens across our 4 podcasts as of today. And what you measure dictates what you say, think, do, feel, and believe. And you got to just pay attention to the right metrics and habits, and it will compound. And then you'll have an enviable lifestyle. And I think that ultimately what we all ultimately want is growth, contribution, and a higher quality of life. And again, all of this sounds simple, but it's way harder to actually do than it is to say it on a podcast.
The consistency is the hard part. It is functionally simple, but it's functional, something that has to happen over 10, 20, 50 years. Otherwise, that's when it breaks down. And the actions are the same. Go to the gym, do your push-ups, get your steps in, do your squats, make sure you can move, like all the things. We all know what a push-up is. If you do enough push-ups, you're going to be able to do more push-ups. Simple and easy. But are you willing to commit to doing that for 20 years? And that's the hard part that I find with a lot of conversations is, you go.
There's one more thing too. It's not just showing up, it's also focusing on improving. So Emilia and I, my beautiful girlfriend and I, future wife, I always say that, and people say, "Oh, congratulations, you're engaged." We're not engaged yet. We're very future oriented, so we're intending on all the steps. But we are coming up on our 3 years of consistent exercise. So 3 years ago, March 1st, 2022, I came to her and I said, "I want to beat my old best." And she said, "What does that mean?" I said, "Well, the longest I've ever exercised consistently is 4 months. It's 3.5. And then I got to 4 months. She said, "I'll do it with you." We got to 4 months. Then we got to a year. And it just compounds. Now, sometimes walking our dog counts. So, right? So we exercise intentionally every single day. We started with 30 minutes. Then we got to 35. Then it was 40. Now it's at 45. And sustaining that actually is really quite difficult. But we have done it for 3 years. And people look at me, they're like, "Well, why aren't you in better shape?" And it's like, I think that you believe that if you were as consistent as me, you'd be this like superhero looking person. When in reality, it's that little bit you do each day, but you also have to improve a little bit each day. And that's why the 0.1% thing, it's 1/10 of 1%, which is 1/10 of a penny. So 1/10 of a penny each day, you have to get better. And that, I think, is harder than just showing up. You have to show up, number one, and then number two, you have to improve. You can't just do push-ups. You have to do a little more.
And it's funny. So naturally, there's in human talk is always the assumptions that are being made, right? And you're spot
Yeah.
on where a lot of people will get in the, okay, I'm just doing the thing to check the box and do the thing, rather than why is doing this thing moving me forward, or how am I getting to where I want to get to. And if your goal at the end of life is, whatever, you want to do 100 push-ups, and if you can only do 10 now, you need to obviously do more. There's a giant delta of 90 push-ups missing, and you got to 10x what you're able to do. Well, how are you going to do that? You have to be consistent, but you also have to get better. So yes, 100%. So you keep calling it, or you keep saying turn the dial to 12. Talk to me about a little bit about that. Where did that come from?
Uh, so I'm grateful for this, and I'm grateful for the conversation. I think that it's vulnerable for me to share this part because I, I I think in statistics and numbers, I already mentioned that, and I do think that that's rare. So that's why a lot of this stuff comes off very, pretentious is probably the right word. But ultimately, on the bell curve, when I say dial it up to 12, I mean very obsessive. So I didn't like just do
Yep.
fitness. I wanted to be the greatest natural aesthetic men's physique fitness model on the planet. And I used to be too scared to say stuff like that publicly because it sounds like you're an arrogant butthead. But at the end of the day, I did 3 fitness shows. I lost my first one, won my second one, lost the third one. I think I came in a little bit arrogant on the first one, lost, came in super humble on the second one and stomped everybody, and then lost the third one, got arrogant again a little bit. And again, when I say arrogant, I say that tongue in cheek. I meant I didn't put in quite as much suffering as I did when I thought I was going to lose. So there's a lesson in that. Stay humble. But at the end of the day, when I say dial up to 12, I don't mean like I go to the gym and check
You
the
don't
box.
dabble.
I don't dabble ever. And honestly, I don't want anyone out there to be upset if they are. I coach, so I'm coaching 26 individuals right now, and it's been hundreds over the years. And I have this all tracked because I'm a big metrics guy. So I don't want anyone to think I'm just talking. There are some people that actually are dabblers, and that's okay. That like I want them to realize not everyone's type A. Not everyone's a super achiever. Not everyone wants to dial everything up to 12. Some people actually do like hanging out at a barbecue. You and I obviously don't. Right. So I just think it's important to lean into whatever you are. Because in the past, I was naive and I coached a lot of individuals that thought they were type A. And eventually you just realize, listen, you don't actually like work. You obviously do. Right. You don't like it all. You don't like it all, but you'd rather be here than at some barbecue. Right. And that's why we do what we do. Because I was on a podcast once with a woman named Deborah, a very sweet person. And I told her, I had finally had the courage to say, well, Deborah, since my car accident at 26, like I haven't actually taken a full day off in 10 years. And she said, oh my God, that's so bad for you. And I said, Deborah, no, that's bad for you. It's not always 16 hours. Sometimes it's 1 hour, but I build a little something every
Yep.
day. And I don't want to not do that. And believe it or not, trust me, there are people that I've coached that wouldn't say that publicly, but they don't want to hang out at a barbecue. They're at the barbecue to appease their family. They don't actually want to be there. Some people are like Michael Phelps. They really just want to be in the pool for 6 years straight. And that's okay too. We're also fearful to lean into who we are because it's either social ostracization or we're afraid we're going to be perceived as a failure. And I think we're all afraid of success or failure on some level or both. So we stay in this little sort of comfort zone. And for me, it was definitely fearful of success. That's why I keep prefacing everything I'm saying, because socially, this is not acceptable stuff.
I mean, well, you and I together probably would have a lot of fun breaking the social norms, if you will, because that's where I usually get a kick out of conversation. Because I think for me, it's always one of those, hey, here's my belief. What's your belief? Oh, I don't like to talk about that. Well, why? Like, I'm not going to think differently of you. Well, other people might. Okay, like, I guess let's talk through why you care about those things. Um, but I feel like today in society, it's such taboo to like, oh, here's my belief. Here's this. I'm this religion. I'm this political kind of thought process. I believe this about Trump. He's in office now. Like, all right, cool. Like, we can still be friends if we have different beliefs. In fact, I'd actually rather be around people that believe a little bit differently, because that's how I start to learn and change my beliefs on things that I am naive about. Because I'm really good at what I'm really good at. I'm really bad at what I'm bad at. And if I don't find new people, my relationships, then I'm always going to be bad at all those things. And I won't have a guy, as I say it, coming from Jersey. I need to have a guy because that's how I grow. So, um,
Well said. Well said. And I think it can be very uncomfortable to sit in the duality of other perspectives.
100%.
And I think that that discomfort is important for growth.
Absolutely. Because you need to learn to work through that. That's where growth comes from.
Agreed.
So changing gears a little bit, the fitness side of things, the message that I heard loud and clear, consistent and look to achieve more. How do we get that 0.1% growth every day? I love that message. And
Mm-hmm.
it's 0.1%, which means you need to be in something for the long term to truly get what you want. If you're going to achieve the goal in 30 days, did you really achieve it? What'd you give up to get there? And is it going to stick around forever? So questions for another time, but switching gears on the financial kind of wealth side of this world. You said that you grew up on the wealthy side, then all of a sudden you went to the poor side of things. Now you're living life, doing your thing. If you had to talk about maybe your favorite money play, investment vehicle, or thing that you like to focus on from a wealth perspective at this stage of life with what you've learned, what might that be? And really, my goal here is for somebody to just learn. Let me go and learn a thing, because if there's one thing about wealth and about money that I've learned, is if you don't learn how to gamify that thing, somebody's not going to get into it. And for me, my big transition point was the rule of 72. I always looked at my interest payment. It
Nice.
was like, yeah, here's your $1.18. And I'm like, what is that going to do for me? But when I switched it on its head to figure out how quickly can I double my money, the $1.72 didn't matter anymore, but rather, can I get my money to double in 7 years, in 4 years, in 2 years, and what things can I do to leverage? So that was a gamification thing for me that helped me a lot. But like, what is your focus point? How do you think about money today?
Yeah, nice. And so the penny that doubles every day for 31 days is over $10 million type of thing. And here's the thing: I wonder if people. I'm coming up on 2,000 episodes, and I need to preface this because I coach a lot of people. The truth is, a lot of people actually don't know that. Like if you went up on the street and you said, "Hey, how much is it a penny that doubles every day for 31 days?" I mean, some people would guess $5. Some people would guess $50. Some people might guess $5,000. Some people might guess 5 million. Every single one of them is wrong. It's 10 million, and it's like 10,300,000 or something like that. I think it's 10.3 million, 10.34. But what does that mean? It means that, again, the simple, unsexy fundamentals consistently pursued over time is the thing. And so I have a cycle. I actually did this with a client yesterday. It's called the personal finance doom loop. And this is where I consider, unfortunately, most people are in this doom loop. And the reason I'm sharing it isn't to be mean, it's to help people. So number one, you are emotionally immature and think short term. Number two, you spend money on short-term pleasure and shiny objects. Number three, you increase your social status temporarily and social validation. Ooh, new shoes, new car, new whatever. You feel significant, special, and it feels like you're making progress, but you're slowly building up debt that's harder and harder to climb out of. And so, unfortunately, that's the doom loop. That's how you end up climbing yourself into a hole you'll never climb out of. And it's not like banks are going to stop you from doing that when they're making money on you doing that, right? So let's just think for ourselves here. So the success loop is this: you are an emotionally mature adult, and you're rational, and you think long term, preferably in numbers. You invest money on personal growth, tools for productivity, and long-term strategic investments. One tool for productivity would be the ChatGPT thing you said. You temporarily decrease social status, lose all your friends. I'm kidding. And external validation. But seriously, you do lose social status. I mean, Emilia and I share a car. Our company makes $30,000 a month, and we share a Tesla. That's not cool in the guy circles. I don't care. I save on insurance. I save, right? So remember, it's cool rappers that buy giraffes or whatever they're doing. It's dumb. It's really dumb. And I'm so sick and tired of watching cool things that are so unintelligent be perceived as cool, because it's just hurting people. It's not cool to buy a giraffe on a whim and to have a net worth of 400 million and then go bankrupt. Like, that's not
Yeah.
cool. Right? We could build schools, we could change the world, right? Okay, so again, I'll get off my soapbox, but you are, number 3 is you temporarily decrease social status. That's why it's so hard. It's not cool to trade in your car for a worse car because the payment's lower. It's not cool to wait an extra year to get that new big screen TV or whatever it is. So that's why most people don't do it. Number 4 is you feel alone but deeply fulfilled since you're actually making real exponential progress in your real life. And everything comes down to, by the way, the social world versus the real world. In the social world, you can't tell the difference between me and someone I'm thinking of who has a Ferrari, but he's broke as a joke. But in social media land, he looks wealthy. I make 10 times more money than this guy, but you would never know it because the social world is different than the real world. Some of the richest mentors I have, you would never even know they're rich unless you went to their home, which, by the way, they don't post on social media. So it's very challenging to build wealth when you want to start out at the top.
Oh, yeah.
And the 5th one is you slowly grow into someone of massive value and build wealth that starts to compound exponentially, and skills monetize forever. So if you don't use computers and you don't understand AI and you don't have strong work ethic and humility and you're not learning and growing every day, like your future is not going to be great unless you have generational wealth or a family that's going to take care of you. And I personally, as well as you, didn't have someone who was going to save us. Based on your brief upbringing and mine, when my stepdad left, I looked into the future and I went, okay, no trust fund, no dad, no generational wealth. I am screwed. We are screwed if I don't. If it's going to be, it's up to me. And that personal responsibility was awful, but also empowered me long term. And I wouldn't necessarily wish that for anyone, but what I do wish is what came with it, which is, listen, you are responsible for your own life and your own future, and no one is coming to save you. And even if they are, you're now not free because you rely on someone externally to take care of you. And I think that entitlement is the biggest weakness of our current first world cultures.
100%. I should.
And you and I had entitlement stripped from us from life based on what you've told me. And obviously my entitlement went away real quick when so much adversity happened at such a young age.
100%. That's my biggest struggle with my daughter, is trying to make sure she doesn't grow up entitled, which is just a challenge these days. Like, life doesn't suck. So it's hard to grow up knowing about life sucking. So, but well,
I would love to pick your brain on that, my friend, because when Emilia and I have children, that is one of our fears as well, because we have built a life that has comfort, but it was through massive discomfort, right?
Yeah. I mean, well, I will say, and my daughter, she does business and she buys and sells things and she makes money for herself. She earns her salary that we give her a review every 90 days, and she pays for her own phone and phone bill. So she knows what it feels like. So we try to make it as difficult reasonably as we can while giving her every opportunity to grow and learn. But she was 6-7 years old making landing pages to sell Girl Scout cookies because I wasn't going to be the parent that just posted the link on social media for free. She was going to have to do the work, and then I would support her with it. And lo and behold, she builds a landing page and does a VSL, and she outsells every other girl in her troop. Weird how that works. But we will. I have a feeling we're going to talk more beyond this. That said, we are button close on time. Both you and I have calls that we got to be on time for here. So I'd love to take the last 4 or 5 minutes and just, where can people find you? But what is a message you really want to share? Like, what's something you want to put out there? What's something that if somebody's listening, they can truly walk away with and be like, wow, that helped me. I'm able to go take action on something that I really want to do to change my life for the better. And again, where can we find you? Where can people get in touch with you? And just, throw it out there.
I think the first thing I've been really big on is lead by example and then personal responsibility. And I think that rather than some fortune cookie phrase, in the 21st century, right, we all have Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn, and I do too, and X or Twitter or whatever. And it's really easy to worry about the social world more than the real world. And I fell for that in college too. And I was worried about who said what and who I was and whether or not I was dating the hot girl and all this stuff. And I think a lot of guys deal with that. A lot of people deal with, am I popular? All this social statusy shit. And the truth is that's a part of the equation, unfortunately, in business. It's my least favorite part, right? If I'm not perceived as successful, I don't have permission to coach you in business, right? So that's why I have the awards in the background, because I need you to know that I am credible and I'm talking from a place of credibility. The problem is in the 21st century, you can manufacture that by renting a Ferrari. And a lot of these people, the more I've gotten behind the scenes, the more I realize they don't actually have real experience. They don't actually know much. And that's been really alarming for me. So, one thing that I'm certain will work for everyone is taking personal responsibility for your own future. And while that sounds maybe easy, it's actually really, really challenging. Like, most people are looking at where they're already great or all that. I spend most of my life behind the scenes looking at where I'm inadequate. Where am I dumb? Where am I making poor choices? All my coaching, that's all it is. Hey, where are we fucking up? I was on with a man named Cole earlier, one of my clients, 25-year-old, awesome metrics, habits, priorities, goals, all this stuff. We spent the entire hour dialing in where he's sucking. And now he's going to go crush it more. So it's a paradox. So that's what I would end with is when you focus on the one area that you suck and then work on improving it, it's very paradoxical because if you're insecure, you won't work on what sucks and then you will get stuck. So it's almost like if you're too insecure to look like a failure, you're almost guaranteeing you are one because you're going to keep pretending to the social world and then in the real world, you're going to be unfulfilled. So my advice to everyone is flip the script. Social world matters, but don't put it first. When I was 26 and I got in that car accident, I flipped the script. It's real world, real life first, social world second. And it has to stay in that priority order. And if my real life is magnificent and the metaphor here is the marriage versus the wedding versus the marriage. The wedding is the social world, the photos, they all look great. The marriage is what matters. And if the relationship is the focus, then the marriage is the wedding's going to look great anyway, instead of the other way around, because we all know a wedding that went really well, but the marriage was atrocious. And I just realized early on, luckily in my quarter life crisis, that I don't want to play that game. I want to focus on the real world and who I am when no one's watching. And I want that to ripple outward rather than the other way around. And I think, unfortunately, in the 21st century, that's alarmingly rare. And obviously, you're doing that as well. So thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And if anyone wants to reach out, I'm on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. You can Google my name. You can chat GPT, Next Level University. It's podcast, nextleveluniverse.com, all of the above. And I'm super grateful to have had the opportunity.
Alan, I appreciate the time. This has been fantastic. I wish we had 2 more hours to keep jamming out, but just means we're going to have to schedule some other podcast time to keep going. But appreciate the time for everybody listening in, watching. I hope you got something out of this. There's a lot of nuggets along here. At the end of the day, if you sat here and listened to this and said, I know this, I can do this, I already do this, you missed the point. So if I can call you on your shit just a little bit, like go back, listen to it, and just be like intentional about how do you take one thing out of this and make yourself better, because we all have a thing that we are the worst at. Maybe you're 85% good there, but it's still not the 100% that you're at something else. And that would be just a strong message that I got out of this as well. So Alan, again, thanks for the time. I appreciate it. Everybody go find Alan on social media, follow him, send some comments, and we'll see you next time.